Fight stick technology hasn't developed much in the past 10 years. The last major change I can think of is the advent of removable shafts. Please don't throw things at me if you find that insulting. I'm just a clueless, leveless boy after all. But anyway, today I want to show you an arcade stick with a special trick up its sleeve. This new feature, seen on this and one other off-the-shelf arcade stick, is a quality of life upgrade that's only been possible recently with the improvements in wireless technology. So let's take a closer look at this controller and find out how this one feature can make a huge difference. This is the Mayflash F700. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. For full disclosure, I just want to quickly thank Mayflash for sending the F700 to me for a review. I do get to keep the controller, but no instructions were given and all opinions are my own. This is a levered fight stick that works with nearly everything. Check out the compatibility list on screen now. In the box we get a user manual, a Type A to Type C converter, one optional octagonal gate, the one pre-installed is a square gate, and of course, the controller. There's also a premium version of this arcade stick. The F700 Elite has an off-white colorway, Sanwa buttons and lever, and a full-sized rubber grip on the bottom. The standard model you see here does have a slight edge with its PCB. It has additional pins for directional modding. From what I understand, this should be useful if you want to turn the F700 into a leveless controller, or if you want to add a jump button down here or something. If you want to upgrade to Sanwa parts and a full-sized grip later, this is of course possible, but getting those upgrades included with the Elite variant saves you some of that hard-earned money. Every other feature is virtually identical. And what are those features? The big one for me is the wireless modes. As well as connecting via USB, the F700 has Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz. Bluetooth is only available on some platforms, but 2.4 GHz mode is compatible with everything. For me, wireless modes are a big deal because it makes the whole process of setting up and setting down your gaming sessions much more convenient and safer if you live in an environment with kids and pets. My friend told me his child caused a drop and dent in his Victrix Pro FS. If that happened to my £350 stick, I would have to take things back to the 1920s. It has a 1000 mAh battery, by the way, that apparently means come here in cat language. I can't confirm that since I don't have a cat, but I can confirm the battery recharges every time you plug in via the connected USB cable. This cable is 2.5 meters long, it's not detachable, but has its own compartment, sealable with a flap. This handy compartment is also where the 2.4 GHz dongle lives when you want to tuck it away. Perfect. There's a handy mode switch over here, so there's no need to faff about and memorize any button combinations when you're switching to another platform. The function row is quite busy. We can change the input mode for the stick, just leave that on D-pad mode whenever possible. We can change the connectivity mode, and everything else from home buttons to touchpad stuff is up here. Even a turbo mode if you need it for classic arcade games. What it doesn't have is dedicated L3 and R3 buttons, which are important for training modes. Mayflash updated the firmware so that we can access L3 and R3 by holding down turbo and select for L3, or turbo and then start for R3. You might find this annoying if you want quick access to them. As a Street Fighter 6 player, I personally record and keep my drills on different characters, so it's not too bad after initially setting things up. I couldn't find a firmware updater for Mac on their official website, but Mayflash did post a link to it on Reddit, so do some Google foo if you're in the same situation. It has a headphone jack and a mute button. Refer to the table again if you need to check for your platform. This feature was considered a luxury once upon a time, so having this along with everything else I've been talking about means the F700 has a lot of bells and whistles. When it comes to functionality, I'm not sure what else you could ask for in an arcade stick. The chassis is made with injection molded plastic with a steel plate on the bottom. It's 37 x 24 x 6 centimeters and weighs 3.45 kilograms. Yes, this is a chunky boy, quite normal in the arcade stick world, but if you're coming from leveless or pad, you might find it takes getting used to. I personally like my controllers big and heavy, so I feel right at home here. Modding the F700 is quite an involved process. You can change the lever top, the buttons, artwork, and the 4 gate to an 8 gate, but modding any of these elements requires the removal of the base. I said that functionally there's not much more you can ask for from the F700, but when it comes to convenience, maybe some ingenuity could have been applied here, although extra conveniences for modding does usually mean a more expensive controller. The stock buttons and lever are decent enough, but I decided to go stealth mode with this build. I have a Sanwa JLX silent lever to replace the existing no-name stock one, and my buttons are going to be a bit of a Frankenstein job. I have 6 Sanwa Orbi SF silents and 2 spare Punk Workshop buttons. Unfortunately, the Punk Workshop buttons clipped in too loosely for my liking, so I left my L1 and L2 as stock buttons. If you haven't done these kinds of mods before, I recommend taking a picture of the wiring before you start, just in case you forget where everything goes. You can also look at the notation up here on the PCB. When removing the connectors from the buttons, I had to grab some tweezers to get a good grip on them. I recommend squeezing and then gently rocking back and forth to get them loose. To replace the lever and bore head, first use a flathead screwdriver to keep the base still and then twist the head to release it. And do you remember the 4 directional pins I mentioned in the beginning of the video? Mayflash decided to use those with a soldered stick, so I had to remove those connectors, undo the clips on the cables, and buy my own 5-pin connector to use my Sanwa JLX. I downloaded the art template from the official website, found this amazing piece of art by Polarity Plus on DeviantArt, slapped some stuff together in Photoshop and ordered a print from Epic Power Designs over in Spain. I've cut my own art before and it's not something I really want to do again. Thankfully, Epic Power Designs uses a laser cutting process, so it looks super clean. I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you, it was difficult. Every part of this process after releasing the backplate was a pain, and I had to look up some tutorials for everything as I went. I even managed to destroy my L1 connector along the way. I will either need to replace those wires or just leave it since I don't use that button anyway. This is certainly not easy to mod, definitely the most difficult time I've had with modding controllers, but the process did fast track my skills and I feel like I've at least ranked up to journeyman in modding. Gamers were apprehensive about wireless controllers several years ago, but the technology has come a long way since then. I jumped back and forth from wireless to wired during my playtest, and if there is any lag, it's very hard to notice. The kind of matches I'm having with my friends aren't consequential enough for losing to matter anyway. If it ever bothers me or if I need to go to a local, I would just plug in via USB to eliminate any possibility of latency. Looking at product images, I was a bit concerned about palm comfort, but the edge of the controller is very smooth. I didn't experience any discomfort or snagging on my hands. And I'm glad I decided to mod this stick because I'm loving my new setup. There's nothing wrong with the stock parts. I had a lot of fun playing with the controller in its default configuration, but I prefer to cause less of a racket during my play sessions. And I can confirm the Silent Sanwa parts work great with this controller. They feel excellent and fulfill my needs as a stealth nighttime gamer. I am a bit concerned about the side compartment. These are notorious for breaking on other controllers, and I know I will have to be very careful with this to make sure it stays intact. It's not too difficult for me as a lap player, but I can imagine that desk players will claw at this dangerously when picking it up from flat surfaces. I don't like how it feels when I do that, so I'm glad I won't be picking it up that way very often. Finally, the function roll will take some learning, at least for me anyway. It looks tidy and clean, but because the buttons all look the same,
that's racist.
I find myself taking a moment to identify the touchpad button during training sessions. Other controllers sometimes will get around this by making the touchpad button larger, but again, those controllers I'm referencing are usually more expensive. I don't own any sticks that are still available off the shelf right now, but I want to use my Razer Panthera as a comparison to show you what kind of features other sticks might offer. This is the Razer Panthera MVC edition. It's a PS4 and PC stick, but thankfully it still has native compatibility with the PS5. I was able to get this from Razer during their clear out sale for £90 or 110 freedom bucks, so I got very lucky with that. But the original RRP in 2016 was actually £239 or $219. The F700 retails for around £145. For that price, the Panthera came with a Sanwa stick and buttons. The chassis has some great curves and slopes on it, so it's easier to pick up from flat surfaces than the F700. It's much easier to mod as well because this button here pops the lid up to reveal the spacious internals where we can access the guts to make any changes. Wireless technology wasn't as good back in 2016 when this hardware was first released, so it uses a detachable cable lock system and doesn't have any wireless functionality at all. So both controllers excel at quality of life features, but in different ways. With the Razer, we get a much easier time with modding, moving it around, and function stuff, since it has a full-sized touchpad and dedicated L3 and R3 buttons. With the Mayflash F700, we get the convenience of getting in and out of gaming sessions much quicker due to the wireless features. The Mayflash F700 is a very strong controller, especially for the price. Modding might be harder than other sticks, but you can still mod it. And even though the function row isn't my favourite, it's possible to get proficient with the layout so that it won't be a concern after some practice. In my opinion, wireless fight sticks are the future. I need all sticks to have this because some days the dread of setting things up with the cable just makes me turn on something else more convenient instead. Over a long period of time, the quality of life you get from that will far outweigh the modding features, since you'll only mod a stick a handful of times until you hit the sweet spot, hopefully. Compatibility with loads of other systems, pretty much anything except Xbox, by the way, an Xbox version does exist, means that potentially this is the only stick you need to ever own. But good luck with that, I don't know anyone who's ever owned just one stick. In terms of buying advice, if you really like the off-white colorway and don't intend to do modding, you should definitely go for the Elite model. But I think the standard F700 is a smart choice otherwise. The black chassis looks really clean, the basic functions are the same, and the money you save by getting this model can go towards exploring the buttons and leather that you really want to try. And let's be honest now, stick modding is half the fun of owning these things. We spend more time theory crafting our arcade sticks than coming up with new setups and combos. If you're a newcomer dabbling in sticks, this would be a great way to experience what arcade sticks have to offer. And if you're a seasoned collector, the wireless freedom is hard to pass up, a legit game changer. At the end of the day, I think it's an excellent value controller, maybe the one that makes the most sense at this price range. Thanks for joining me today for this video, I hope you found it useful. Click on this playlist if you want to binge some leaveless reviews, and if you're still on the fence about subscribing, pick a number between 1 to 16. If the ruby bead lands on your number, hit the subscribe button. If you get one of the silver beads, smash that like button for me. Either way, I appreciate you and thanks for the support. See you in the next one.